So I had grown up watching an embarrassing amount of TV, but never knew I could do anything about it professionally. So when I graduated from college, I had a business degree in marketing and management, so I go do marketing and management. Well, I didn't find the exact right marketing job, and I had two jobs out of college that just were not for me, just were really frustrating. And I had gotten to a point at my second job, after a particularly sour meeting. I said, I'm going to do something about TV. We're talking about the 1996, so I pulled out a phone book, which probably for some of your viewers, I'll have to explain what that is, but pulled out a phone book to call every TV station in the entire town to say, would they take on a volunteer? The last number I called was PBS12, and gratefully it was right before their March pledge drive. And their volunteer coordinator said, well, I don't have an internship, but we would take volunteers for our pledge drive. And I said, I'll take anything. So I came in to answer the phones in the March pledge drive for 1996. And as I got here, and as people know, you answer the phones for the little break in between the shows. But when you're live, doing live breaks back then, you would have time in between to talk to the crew, because all the crew were volunteers. And as we were taking a break, and I was talking about, boy, I'd really love to get an internship, the floor director at that time, Susie Aikman, a longtime legend here at PBS12, said, well, you know we take volunteers on the crew, don't you? I was like, no, I've been here a whole day, no. So she walked me back to the control room where the volunteer sign-up chart was, and I signed up for every shift I possibly could. I didn't know a zoom handle from a focus knob, so I knew nothing about television, but they took me in. PBS12 has always had a spirit of bringing in folks and learning from there. The very last shift live of that Sunday night, I was doing graphics, which that was right in front of the director in the control room. And I was talking to the engineer who was sitting next to me about I want to get an internship. And Barbara Jabali, who was directing that night, said, well, I could use an intern. I said, well, that's great. I had no idea what she did. She had no idea about me because I was just talking about it. She said, well, talk to me Wednesday and we'll talk about it. I went into work on Monday and quit. Said I'm going to get an internship working for free at PBS12 to pay the bills. I waited tables, moved back in with my parents 2 years after graduating college. They were so proud. But I became Barbara Jabali's production intern. Now, Barbara Jabali created a variety of award-winning documentaries in the late 80s and early 90s. But she also created, along with the GM at that time, Ted Critchell's, Colorado Inside Out. So my very first job here at PBS12 was an intern on Colorado Inside Out, and I loved it. And I was a part of that program till my last day here at PBS12. I eventually worked my way up leading that department, and really just a fantastic, productive, wonderful team in production. They did the heavy lifting, I did more paperwork. Over the years, I began to oversee programming, content, eventually as station manager with development, marketing, and fundraising. And just really, I think the theme here at PBS12 now, and has been for 45 years, is you wear a lot of hats, but you wear them with pride, and you wear them with happiness, because you get to work with some amazing people. Kyle Dyer is the fifth host of Colorado Inside Out. When it premiered in 1992, Ken Hamblin, who was a radio talk show host back then, was its original host. And that lasted for about a year. The original four top, that wasn't always rotating, but it began to, always included our friend Patty Calhoun. So she's been on from the very first episode till now. As Peter Boyles, the next host and the longest running host of Colorado Inside Out, would always call her accurately, she is the heart and soul of Colorado Inside Out. Peter hosted the show until 2007, and that's when Raj Chauhan from CBS Colorado did a wonderful job. When he got his law degree and then expanded his law career, that eventually led to a district attorney's office, he couldn't host the show anymore. And that was in 2013. Well, I had served as both its production intern, associate producer. When Barbara Jabali retired in 2000, I took over as executive producer, and then I took over as host in 2013. I always told people the part of Colorado Inside Out that is the best part. What's your favorite episode? What's your favorite moment? It's the 5 minutes before the show starts that we can't record, and we can't share with the audience for legal reasons. We've tried. It's when everyone comes in with what they've heard. So Patty and Eric and Penn and everybody else who's on that wonderful panel comes in and like, I just heard this, and can you believe that? Before the cameras turn on, to be a part of that, both when I was working on the crew, to hear it as a producer through the headset, and then to be as the host, just listening to these stories, that was always my very favorite moment. And it was from the beginning. They did that with Peter, they did it with Raj, they did it with me, I'm sure they do it with Kyle. It's also a program that it's not only near and dear to my heart, but I know it's near and dear to so many in the Colorado community. Now, here in the 45th anniversary of PBS12, Colorado Inside Out is in its 33rd season, the longest running public affairs show in Colorado history, the second longest running TV show of any kind in Colorado. Once it has its 42nd season, it will outlast Blinky. So Blinky's Fun Club, because it was started in Colorado Springs and in Denver, technically has the record for 41 years. Right behind it is Colorado Inside Out. It's always been civil. It's always had a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek attitude. And it's always stayed on what matters to Coloradans. And that started from the very beginning of how it was created by Barbara Jabali. And proud to know that I was a small part of its legacy, and that it continues today with Kyle and her panel is really a treat to see, but I think also a statement to its impact in Colorado. People are still drawn to the program because you don't get that kind of analysis that is both bipartisan, it is significant, and it's relevant. That's hard to find, and I'm proud to see that it continues today with a great host and a great panel. I've been able to recognize the long list of gifts that PBS12 has given me, starting with its people and all the different people I've been able to work with, the different projects I've been able to be a part of, and the fact that it as an organization has made such an impact in this community, so I get to see that come back. I still share my lessons of what I learned from so many great people here with people now that I consult with. And I get to say, you know, I learned this is how I scraped my knee as a manager, who helped me up, whether it be Kim Johnson, who worked here really as my boss for my entire career, to Heather Dalton, who is, we both went to junior high together. We were both hired as interns together. We both worked together here. She's the reason Sounds on 29th and so many other great programs exist here at PBS12. We work together hand in hand. She's like my TV sister, really. To everyone in between. There's so many, I could last another 2 hours reeling off everybody, but Heather Dalton had a great idea to include live performances here in our studio. It wasn't like we were sitting on a bunch of money, but she came to me. I was I was running the production department, and I literally basically had a little bit left over. When I'm talking about a little bit of budget left over, I'm talking about what we would have spent on paper clips and duct tape. She turned that little bit of budget into 13 magical episodes, and it was not only her amazing talent, but her leadership of the team, that everybody was psyched to do whatever they could to make that particular show great. That spirit has always been a part of PBS12 for 45 years. It is that spirit to deliver something special to Coloradans and doing everything in your power to make it happen, regardless of budget, because once you could prove it, that it made an impact, the support would come, and it did. When looking back at some of the big issues we had the honor to cover here at PBS12, what I always took great pride in, and this is part of the station's ethos, is we always provided the local relevance and conversation to even a large issue. Clearly 9/11 will stand in history as one of the pivotal moments in the world, but when it came to Colorado's point of view, so much focus was on national, global perspective. We knew conversations were happening locally. We hosted episodes of Colorado Inside Out live, including members of both the Jewish and Islam communities, imams and rabbis, talking about what it meant, of what religious stances really meant. There was a much deeper conversation to be had, and to host local people local, really ambassadors of our community to talk about those larger national global issues here in our studio was a great honor. It was also a great honor to be part of the full international coverage of the Democratic National Convention in 2008. We worked with our partners at CBS Colorado, and for the first time for us, this was a big deal. News stations do this every day, hundreds of times, but for us to go have crews to shoot a story that day, bring it back, edit it, and put it on that night was a big deal. That's not how PBS12 has ever been built, and certainly wasn't built in 2008. Being a part of that and knowing that we are providing a different local angle, really what PBS12 has done for 45 years, was not only an honor, but a privilege and something I take great pride in. It included everybody. Everybody that was, we brought back Barbara Jabali out of retirement, Heather Dalton led a crew, we had all of our editors doing things, it took an all hands on deck plus some effort. But that was important for our community to see. It was different from all the national coverage, and was special both for Colorado and for us. During my era, a national issue came to PBS, and we took it on head on. Arthur, a beloved kids show, was one of the very first shows of its kind to include a program that, well, Arthur's friend has two mommies. And that, I want to say this is probably the late 90s, maybe 98, 99. That was a big issue. We think about it nowadays, you're like, you've got to be kidding me, but a lot has transpired in 45 years in PBS12's history. Not only did we air the program, we were front and center. There were PBS stations that said, no, we're not going to air it. We aired it. We aired it again in prime time. We did an episode of Colorado Inside Out Live all about the episode. We brought in people to talk about it, to debate it, people on both sides. It wasn't just one side. We hosted and convened those conversations. So when there were issues like that, that was our cue to lean in, not to run and hide or to ignore. Gay rights and homosexuality programs, just talking about it, having the courage to talk about it, the issues that weren't being talked about. These were not only documentaries that PBS12 created for Colorado, but they also got them nationally distributed. And that was a big deal because those conversations weren't happening, and some of those stations in different parts of the country couldn't go create that programming. PBS12 did and made that difference in other markets. We know those are risks involved. Funders, comments from other viewers who don't want to see this kind of stuff, you put yourself out there. But Ted Critchell is one of the very first folks that came into the station, mid-80s, early 80s. He was here very early. Eventually became our general manager, was general manager when I started. Like to say, if we're not pissing somebody off, we're not doing our job. And that's why he was the one that found, that gave the green light, and this would have been, again, early 90s. We were the only PBS station in America that would air the Lambda Report, a news and issues about and for the GLBTQ plus community, right next to the Rush Limbaugh Show. That little example, and I've used it 1,000 times, that is PBS12 in a nutshell. We should feature all voices. We will go there, and if you don't like it, tune in tomorrow. Our media environment has always been in a state of change. Really, you look past the last 45 years, PBS12. First of all, it was just a handful of local stations, and then cable came. Well, why would you want public media? Because now I have the Food Network. Fast forward to the internet era, I was like, well, if I have 500,000 websites, why do I need public media? I can go get any information I need. Yes, but was it geared toward an audience? So these are the voices that you need to hear in your community that can't afford a huge platform. Are you hearing the underserved voices? That's where PBS12 was for so long. Now that we fast forward to today, It's very easy to hear, well, gosh, I don't even watch TV anymore. Everyone's watching YouTube or a million other platforms. But are there organizations looking out for me, for the voices that I need to hear, on the issues that are important to me and my neighbors? Yes, there are. It's called PBS. There is still a desperate need for some organization to look out for our community, to provide those issues, to provide that analysis, to provide that platform for voices we will not hear. Oh, well, they can get on YouTube. Okay, there's billions of videos on YouTube. Are you going to, by yourself, find that voice from your community that can tell you about the history of 5 Points? Maybe, probably not. The very best searchers aren't going to find that. That's where PBS12 and other public media make its impact, and why it needs to hopefully exist for another 45 years to bring those voices to our community where even the most elaborate algorithm simply can't do. What it all comes down to me, are two tenets of PBS12. Meet your audience where they are, and that could be with stories or in different rural parts of Colorado. We still have translators getting our signal out all the way across eastern Colorado because the audiences have always been important. Whether it's going to be on their phones or on any platform, they need to see our stories. And then second of all, through all those different technological changes, what remained true is the story matters. It could be in 4K, 8K. By now, they probably have 16K. I've gone from the cameras that you had an entire full VCR to carry with you and tripods that weighed more than your intern to cameras that were smaller than your phone, or you had 8 different ones in the studio covering 8 different angles. If you weren't covering and telling an important story, it didn't matter. The technology can change. The ways we deliver stories can change, and they will continue to do so. But the value and impact of those stories remains the same. So you concentrate there. Are we including the issues that people need to know about? Are we telling the stories they need to know? And are we including the audience in that discussion? That's what's always important. The way to do it is always going to change. For Colorado Inside Out Live, when it first came on the air in 97, maybe 98, it was answering the phone. And very old school, you're on the air. By the time that show ended and we moved on to Studio 12, it was here's everyone's live tweets and live reactions. But it was still including people's voices, that people, wherever they were watching, knew they could be part of the discussion. PBS 12 started that way in 1980. It continues to be that way now. And that's what's most important after all the technological changes and the ones to come. Supporters of PBS 12 for 45 years and still going have said, yes, keep doing this. We will fund and support that courage to include those voices from our entire community, especially the ones I have not heard. When you have a chance to look back at your career and say, this is where all that impact was made, and appreciate it, then your job is to share it. So really what I've concentrated on now is to share everything that was so generously given to me with others, and really just appreciate the impact I got to be a very small part of because of what was started 45 years ago. I'm Dominic Dezzutti, and I'm very proud to say happy anniversary PBS 12, 45 wonderful years. With these 45, may it be the platform for another great 45. Thank you for making such a difference in my life and for the entire state of Colorado.